This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. My name is Eben Jansen. The show is live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube as we speak, with our entire show available on our YouTube channel all of the time. Today, we'll look at how the ruling party will deal with South Africa's economic concerns in its next term. It's World Telecommunications Day, and we'll talk broadband and monopolies in South Africa. Also, there's growing concern around drag racing in this country, and then there's a cracking sporting weekend ahead of us here in South Africa as well. But first, let's look at our top stories. Mining company Lonmin will now approach the Labour Court to nullify the ongoing industrial action. Employers say there are indications that most strikers want to return to work, but they are being intimidated. National Police Commissioner Ria Piache has stressed that she will continue to deploy officers to Marikana until the situation is under control. But Union President Joseph Matunja has told police to leave the area, saying their presence will only serve to intimidate the striking mine workers. Public Protector Thuli Madonsela says government's decision to approach the High Court to have her Nkandla report reviewed is premature. Madonsela says those disagreeing with the report should take the matter to Parliament for debate. Ministers in the security cluster say some of the findings and recommendations may be contradictory. Madonsela says the ministers will be avoiding accountability to Parliament. And South Africa will have 2 extra spots in next season's CAF club competitions. ABSA Premiership champions Mamelodi Sundowns and runners-up Kaizer Chiefs will take part in the CAF Champions League. Third place Bidvest Wits and Orlando Pirates will both compete in the Confed Cup. Now, after their re-election, the ANC still has a tough task at hand when it comes to South Africa's worrying economic state, with foreign investors still keeping a nervous eye on the country's 4-month-old wage strike in the platinum mining sector, and with one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. The party will have to ensure that the next 4 years will bring good news to those worried about restoring business confidence. Along with this, the rand will also remain under pressure throughout the year, fueled by the US Federal Reserve's tapering program. Today, we are joined by the acting CEO of Business Unity South Africa, Cas Cavadia, to talk about what the ruling party can and should do about the current economic situation. Good morning, Mr. Cavadia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Recently, the country's growth forecasts have been downgraded once again by the IMF. I think it's hovering around 2.3%. How are we going to turn this trend around in the short and medium term?
Well, I think firstly we need to come together as a country, and we are quite happy that post the elections the ANC has indicated that the National Development Plan will be the key plan for the next 5 years. We believe, despite the fact that COSATU has some problems with the plan, we believe it's a one plan that has fairly broad support, and we need to, as the critical stakeholders, come together behind that plan and start making that plan work. Secondly, I think we're also happy that there's been noises after the election that there shouldn't be too much tinkering with policy. There should be policy consistency.
Yeah.
And we believe that is the right way to go. We believe that our policies are in place, our policies are correct. The challenge is implementation, and the challenge is consistency of the policy environment. So I think that the next 5 years, this next term under President Zuma, has got to be about implementation, has got to be about labor, government, business coming together, putting the hard issues on the table within the context of a national interest agenda,
yeah,
and making compromises along the way and implementing.
South Africa seems to be lagging behind the boom that's happening in Africa at the moment. How do we tap into that, and is that in the plan?
Well, I think we tap into it by sending out a consistent message. I was at the World Economic Forum Africa in Abuja last week, and other African countries, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, are basically saying we are open for business. I think they've taken the view that they need to pull in investment, with the investment get economic growth, and then engage with stakeholders in a way that economic growth begins to address inequalities in those countries. I think we need to take the same route. We do need to address inequalities. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Otherwise, growth is not sustainable. But we've got to send out a consistent message that we are open for business, that we will create and maintain an environment that's conducive for business. That doesn't mean that we create an environment where business simply exploits, but we create an environment where business comes in, they invest. They also work with other stakeholders to address some of the socioeconomic problems in this country. And so things like, for instance, recently the private securities bill, where we're sending out messages that international investors in the private security industry must divest the majority of the shares to local people. Yeah. Those sorts of messages. The environment where we're not making it easy for small businesses to open business and be licensed. In Rwanda, you now can get onto the net and in 6 hours, costing you $4, get a license to open a business.
Yeah.
Okay? Why can't we do that here? So we need to get rid of the red tape, and we need to actually say we open for business and we want investment in this country because we have some competitive advantages in this country that we can use.
What about the cost of doing business in South Africa, yeah, and the threat of monopolies that we have in South Africa that at times make it very difficult for small businesses to survive?
No, absolutely. I think we need to, one of the discussions we need to have is the structure of the economy in our country. I think there are some needs for some serious structural adjustments. I think that we need to ensure that there are good relationships between major corporates and SMEs so that SMEs get into the supply chains. I think we need to address some of the non-financial issues related to SMEs and develop SMEs so that banks and others can, with confidence, lend money to those SMEs. We need to develop a venture capital market for SMEs in this country. So we've got a lot to do, but I think we've got the tools with which to do it. I think we have an entrepreneurial culture in this country. Yeah. I think we have significant advantages in this country that other parts of countries in other parts of Africa do not have, but we're just not optimizing those and capitalizing on those.
How do we deal with the threats of a growing strike season in South Africa, that kind of instability? And what are the threats if we don't deal with something like this platinum wage strike that's now going on for a fourth month and really seems to be putting the brakes on our economy a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't look. Firstly, the right to strike, nobody has a problem with. I think it's the nature of those strikes, particularly the violence around those strikes. And also, I sometimes feel that, the environment has changed and is changing. The labor environment is changing, the global business environment is changing, and yet we sometimes apply the same old tools to a changing environment. I think in the platinum strike at the moment, business leaders in the platinum industry and union leaders in the labor industry, in the labor sector, need to get together and have some hard discussions. Take themselves off for a few days and quietly talk about this and see how we can actually reach some compromise so that this industry is not threatened. And in the long term, if this industry is threatened, essentially jobs are threatened.
The outlook, is there a magic bullet? People talk about things like shale gas exploration, fracking, for lack of a better word for it. Can we see the 2 to 3 points onto our GDP that people are forecasting with the fracking scenario? And could that be the push that our economy would then need?
Well, I think shale gas exploration of that, there's all indications that we have significant deposits of that. I think that's something we obviously must exploit. I don't think there's a silver bullet, to be quite honest with you. I think there are some hard issues. I think we have to tackle our education and skill issues. I think we need to tackle our red tape issues. I think we need to tackle the issue of trust between the various stakeholders. Yeah. And so I think we need to identify the 4 or 5 hard issues that we need to talk about. That might take us time to address, but if we can agree these are the issues, if we can agree that in the national interest, we're all going to have to make compromises along the way, and we then put an implementation plan together, I think we'll be able to send out the positive messages.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That's the acting CEO of Business Unity South Africa, Mr. Cas Coovadia. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Just to recap our top story, mining company Lonmin says it will approach the Labour Court to nullify ongoing industrial action on the Platinum Belt. The company has temporarily stopped sending text messages to employees to review the risks associated with it. It is worried about the level of violence associated with the strike.
It's been months downing tools. Some are ready to return to work. Lonmin says it's hopeful a resolution will be found, but the company is exploring legal options.
I think the levels of violence and intimidation are worrying, and that those will certainly warrant us looking at all our options, including the legal option to declare the strike dysfunctional.
AMCU's president says the union is not responsible for the latest spate of violence.
I think Lonmin, they are doing those underhand tactics as they're doing it for the previous 3 months. So there's nothing surprising.
Members of AMCU at Lonmin, Impala Platinum and Anglo-American Platinum went on strike on January 23rd, demanding a basic salary of 12,500 rand per month. Lonmin has set May 14th as the day for workers to return to work. Meanwhile, the platinum miners' strike in Limpopo is not enjoying the same level of support as in the northwest. 300 of Twickenham Platinum's 1,000-strong workforce are taking part in the strike. The workers say they're struggling to survive, but will persist until their demands are met.
Meanwhile, government has called on AMCU and platinum mines to return to the negotiating table. Mine Workers Union, the NUM and UASA says a lack of experience and arrogance at the negotiating table are what's fueling the conflict. Analysts say the strike is having a devastating impact.
Many believe this week's violence in Rustenburg could force both AMCU and the platinum employers back to the negotiating table. Government is also urging parties to resume talks to find a solution to the strike.
The parties must engage in meaningful negotiations with a view of finding a resolution to the current dispute.
Smaller unions, NUM and UASA, believe both parties will have to change tactics if they hope to find each other.
Labour, as a bigger picture, are actually losing out because our rights is being taken away to what we need to do.
The National Union of Mine Workers urged members not to return to work because of intimidation. It admits, though, that it's too late for workers to back down from their demands.
It would be a devastating blow to labour in general if that strike collapses without the workers having achieved anything and having lost so much.
Economists say the strike is having an impact on the more than 70,000 workers who are on strike.
If you look at the suppliers to the mines, which are normally about 1.6 times the amount of people in the mines, that will lead us to about 300,000, even 350,000 if we take retailers and so on that are being influenced by this.
There are also fears that the prolonged strike could see mines closing most of their struggling operations and mechanizing future shafts. Liuta Motlogelwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, let's take a quick look at what you are talking about on social media at SABC Newsroom. That's where you can send your message to. Sally LaRue says the key to dealing with a corporate crisis lies not in managing the crisis, but in the leadership taken. Point taken, I would say. Elevated Security says, I wonder if the platinum strike would have continued for so long if the union leaders weren't getting a salary for 4 months either. Mapato Ramohapa says it's silly to reduce the platinum strike to Matundra. It assumes that miners are brainless, being led by one man into poverty. Ayanda Masina says if the mining sector investors decide to leave, we will then nationalize our mines easily. Mbalentle Mtetwa says the platinum strike is a cry for change in the future of mine workers and the minimum wage. May it not fall on deaf ears. Well, before we go to a break, let's just have a quick look at what's making headlines on some of the front pages of the world today. The late edition of the New York Post takes a look at what, at the new 9/11 museum that was ceremonially opened by President Barack Obama yesterday. Obama led a somber ceremony to officially mark the opening of the National September 11th Memorial Museum in New York. Well, it seems that we have some technical difficulties, but describing the venue at the site of the attacks as a sacred place of healing and of hope. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we talk about what is happening on World Telecommunications Day here in South Africa. Don't go away.
An earth tremor has hit parts of Johannesburg. No damage or injuries have been reported after a magnitude 4 tremor this morning. The tremor shook parts of Johannesburg just before 10 this morning. It has been described as quite a big guy.
The provisional epicenter that the Council for Geoscience has given is a few kilometers southwest of the University of Johannesburg.
Previously in 1999, a similar tremor was recorded measuring 5.7 in Valcom. Another event of this magnitude can be expected again within the next 3 weeks.
That's Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Zoom into Africa. This is Libya. The chairman of the General National Congress is Mr. Nouri Abu Samen. Libya got independent from Italy on 10 February in 1947. The population is more than 6 million people. One of Libya's major languages spoken is Arabic. Monetary unit, Libyan dinar.
Welcome back. Your Newsroom here on SABC News. The World Telecommunications and Information Society Day is an event that has been hosted annually on the 17th of May since 1969. It serves as a platform for members of the International Telecommunications Union and other stakeholders to raise awareness on information and communications technologies in the development of communities. In commemoration of this day, the South African Communications Forum will be leading this year's events with a media campaign and a celebration. But to tell us more, we are joined by the Deputy Minister from the Department of Communications, Stella Tembisa Nabeni-Abrams, as well as the Chairperson of the South African Communications Forum, Mr. Lucky Masilela. Good morning to you guys, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Let's start with the event itself, ma'am, if I can start with you. Just tell us about the event and the kind of celebrations that we are looking forward to.
The event, mainly as I've already outlined in your introduction, is that annually we celebrate the World Telecoms Day. The reason is simply because we want to promote awareness or raise awareness in terms of the usage of ICTs and internet, together with the advantages that come with it.
So how has it changed and developed over the years?
We're still on the developing stages. I think we're quite excited about the developments, the changes that emanate from these activities in particular. We can see the country having transformed significantly, utilization or usage of handsets, communication. Teledensity is no longer being used. We no longer count using teledensity. We use other measures, cell phone penetration, which exceeds 100%. So for us, we are quite excited. We just need to see ICT cascading into day-to-day usage and being part of an academic program to skills development.
Broadband for sustainable development is the theme for this year. Broadband in South Africa is a problem. It's expensive. How do we deal with this?
Firstly, let me raise just one crucial thing. That as much as we say broadband is a problem in our country, but there's lots of people who get to enjoy the benefits of it. Yes. Whilst we're struggling in certain aspects, for example, the cost to communicate, I'm sure you have seen in the past weeks and months, whereby two of the big operators took ICASA to court. We have a responsibility as a policy department to start with, to make sure that as the Constitution is clear, that everybody has access to information. We therefore make sure that everybody adheres to that. We don't deprive anyone of that. If we are serious about building information society, it means therefore that our people must be able to access that information. And then if it's not affordable, then it is not accessible. Therefore, we have a responsibility, as I've already said, through ICASA, which is our regulator, but we have to make the policies that outline and stipulate that everybody, every player in the space must make sure that they give access to everybody to access information.
How do we get the monopolies to play ball?
Of course, we enforce the legislations that we have and the regulations. That's why we have ICASA. That's why we must put in a policy that is very clear. If you have gone through our broadband plan and the policy, they talk to that. Whilst the NDP gives us space to say at least by 2030, every citizen in this country must have access to broadband. As the department, we've given ourselves a target of 2020 to say at least 90% of our citizens must have access to speed services, not just in broadband services.
Yeah.
But now, it is up to us to make sure that we empower ICASA not to be toothless like they have been throughout the years. We make sure that we provide the necessary resources that they need, including the relevant skills. Because if they don't have the relevant skills, they won't have the power to challenge the big guys on the, out there.
Mr. Masilela, we now hear where we're going. That's the vision.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
Let me start off by saying we're quite excited. The theme of this year, it comes slam bang with our program in the country. The country currently is working on the ICT review policy. We have set ourselves a target of 5 megabits per second for broadband, which is much higher than a lot of countries benchmarking globally.
Yeah.
So we're quite excited with the targets that we've set for ourselves, And this is where we are. We are not happy where we are, but the targets that we've set are almost setting the milestones for us to achieve and use ICT for economic growth, to ensure that this also becomes in the epicenter of our skills development.
The challenges, short, medium term, what are the wins that we need in order to get to where we want to go?
The first one is the reduction of the cost to communicate, both voice and data, as we've already outlined. The second one is to make sure that we get everybody on board, because as government, we cannot do it alone. That's why we enforce that everybody who is a role player, be it private companies, be it citizens, but everybody must come to the space. And thirdly, is to make sure, like, as you know, that we have one of the flagship projects in the department. We come up with an integrated ICT policy that gives a network and a vision to everybody to say that this is where we want to go as the country, and everybody must abide by that.
What is your message then to those people out in the outlying areas now, the ordinary South African, and then to big business?
Look, the message we've been trying to send it over the last few months when we do the road show around the ICT review policy process, that we would want citizens now to stand up and understand what are their rights in terms of broadband, and they need to understand their rights in terms of having a simple thing as postal services, which for you in the city center you would take for granted, but we need to ensure that all those services cascade way beyond just our areas that we live in. And we would want our citizens to appreciate and use ICT as a tool for enablement and economic growth. And it should not be a tool that benefits only those in the city centers or in the urban and peri-urban areas.
Yeah. How do we integrate ourselves with the rest of the continent in this process?
We are already there. As you know, that we're part of the global players. We're a signatory in the ITU, which means everything that is achieved globally, we're part of it. But what is important is that we have aligned our policies and the programs together with the global world ones. What we're doing is to ensure that through our department and the industry itself, as we heard from the chairperson, we work together in saying this is the part that you can play. Therefore, let's make sure that we talk to each other so that we're able to go out there and say, this is what we can do as the country, not as government, but as the country as a whole, so that we will respond to whatever the world out there needs us. We cannot do it alone as South Africans, of course. As I said, we have to be a global player. And for us to be able to do that, it means we must embark on certain services, including e-government services and e-commerce. Yeah. Because if we are not there, it means we are not allowing people to trade utilizing our own space in the ICT. So we are clear about one thing, that through the integrated national policy, we will be able to reach a certain level, at least that would make us be able to compete with those that are there already.
On the policy side, then, we have everything in place. What about infrastructure? 2010 was supposed to be the catalyst for switching on our countrywide broadband penetration. It hasn't really happened. What do you see? Why wasn't 2010 the catalyst that it should have been on the infrastructure side?
I think our infrastructure is quite solid. I must say, if we benchmark it with a lot of developed countries, we have quite a stable infrastructure. We just need to see additional investments into infrastructure. If you look at the programs, the National Long Distance program that was laying cable, fiber cable throughout the country, yeah, it demonstrates the sustainability. We have metro fiber, and we're quite happy, but we think there's a lot more that needs to be done, that can be done, you know. Yeah. If you talk about, probably you're referring to the set-top box, you know, or yeah, the digital migration story. That story is a story about patriotism. Yeah. We are still fighting as a nation, as individuals. And had we been fighting as a nation with a common goal of understanding why we need to have DTT in place, this would have been long concluded. We would be enjoying high-definition TV signals, high-definition radio signals. Yeah. But today we are becoming our own enemies in the rollout of DTT.
Final remarks I want to give to you, ma'am. Just tell us about the celebrations around this day and how are we really going to bring this process home?
The celebrations will kickstart tomorrow, of course, with the media alerts. We have companies from the industry that are part of the SACF, the South African Communications Forum, that are participating in the program. What is going to be happening is to ensure that all the learners around the Orange Farm area here in Gauteng participate. There's going to be an essay that is going to be written of about plus minus 300 words that they must write in terms of, or it must be aligned to the theme, which is broadband sustainability. What is important there is that we want to encourage them to say, this is where we want to go. This is how we plan to integrate ICTs in our learning areas. And for us to be able to do this, these are the things that must be done both by government and the society. As we all know that education is a societal issue. But on top of that, we will be handing over a cyber lab in one of the schools where we'll be hosting the actual event on the 30th of this month. That's the name of the school is Mpetu Mahlatsi Senior Secondary School. The cyber lab has been donated by Broadband in Frauco, and also we're going to be installing a satellite dish TV that is donated by Platco Digital.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I am a soldier for broadband for the people. We need to open the doors for ourselves to do business as a country. We should not hold this process back. Thank you for joining us.
Do join us in the ICT revolution.
I will indeed. I am. I'm there, ma'am. Thank you very much. Well, that is, of course, the Deputy Minister from the Department of Education here in South Africa, Stella Tembisa Nabeni Abrahams, and then from the South African Communications Forum, I was joined this morning by Mr. Lucky Masilela. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Now let's just take another quick look about, well, what you are still talking about on social media. Many different stories doing the rounds at SABC Newsroom is where you can, where you can contact us and send us your message or picture. We love that. Matrani says, this one is going to be a great case study on how not to start a political party or run a campaign. Achang, I think, yes, absolutely. Mampela Rampela is indeed a bored, rich old lady in desperate need of a hobby, says Tabang. That's a bit harsh, Tabang. Black Knowledge says, firstly, Achang attempts to merge with the DA, then it performs badly in the elections, and now its leader quits politics. What a journey. She's taking a sabbatical. There's a difference. Carl says, Mampela Rampela has got to be the most self-involved person ever. Don't sell people dreams you yourself don't believe in. That's the worst. Hashtag Achang. And then Sasso says, 50K for 11 million votes. I guess it was the right thing to do. I don't know what you're on about. Maybe I'm having a blonde moment. Let's take a look at what's on our Facebook page now. The trial of Czech businessman Radovan Krecha and 5 others accused of kidnapping and torture is expected to continue in the High Court. We keep you up to date with the case on our Facebook page. Of course, then, the latest on the abducted Nigerian schoolgirls can also be found on that page in one of the latest developments. Nigeria's Deputy High Commissioner to South Africa, Cuban Martin, says his department or his government is not prepared to negotiate with Boko Haram. Now for the universal question. Are you a cat or a dog person? In our YouTube clip of the day, we leave you on a bit of a lighter yet heroic note when a cat, yes a cat, saved a little boy from a stray dog. It was a savage attack. Take a look at this. Surveillance footage posted on YouTube shows a cat rushing to the aid of her owner's son who was at the mercy of a savage attack by a dog. There you see the dog coming in really quite bad. A child was playing outside his home and suddenly started biting its leg, pulling it along the house's driveway. But the cat quickly reacted and leapt from outside of the camera's view and chased the dog away as the youngster's mother rushed towards him. More than 1 million views on YouTube. We're going to take a short break. Newsroom will be back right after this.
Your World provides trusted world, continent and local stories. We deliver breaking news from across the globe and information on the latest top stories on business, technology, politics and sport. Analysis of the big global business and economic issues as they affect consumers and investors. Make sure you don't miss Your World, weekdays between 11 and 12 midnight. We keep the nation fully informed.
You're back with Newsroom. Welcome. Let's take a quick look at our top stories. Mining company Lonmin will now approach the Labour Court to nullify the ongoing industrial action. Employers say there are indications that most strikers want to return to work, but they are being intimidated. National Police Commissioner Ria Piecha has stressed that she will continue to deploy officers to Marikana until the situation is under control. But Union President Joseph Matunja has told police to leave the area, saying their presence will only serve to intimidate the striking workers. Public Protector Thuli Madonsela says government's decision to approach the High Court to have her Nkandla report reviewed is premature. Madonsela says those disagreeing with the report should take the matter to Parliament for debate. Ministers in the security cluster say some of the findings and recommendations may be contradictory. Madonsela says the ministers will be avoiding accountability to Parliament. And in sport, South Africa will have 2 extra spots in next season's CAF club competitions. ABSA Premiership champions Mamelodi Sundowns and runners-up Kaizer Chiefs will take part in the CAF Champions League. Third place Bidvest Wits and Orlando Pirates will both compete in the Confederations Cup. Now, one of the biggest headaches for traffic officials in the city of Cape Town remains the increasing occurrence of illegal drag racing. Traffic authorities have reiterated that it remains a big problem in the Western Cape after 5 people were arrested last Sunday for reckless and negligent driving. Even though drag racing is illegal here in South Africa, it doesn't seem to stop or bother people to post their drag racing nights on various social media platforms, including YouTube. Let's take a look at one of those late-night drag racing events. This video was taken in March in Springfield Park in Durban, another hotspot here in South Africa, another indication that this is in fact a countrywide problem. Dangerous stuff right in the main streets in the city. Now, the following pictures were taken after a drag racing accident in Eersterivier in the Western Cape last month. That's just outside of Cape Town. The pictures show just how things can go seriously and dangerously wrong. Unbelievably, no one died in this accident. Only the driver was injured seriously. The City of Cape Town's Ghost Squad has since 2009 made serious inroads in combating this deadly fad. We are joined in our Cape Town or Sea Point studio by Alderman J.P. Smith, the City of Cape Town's mayoral committee member for safety and security, to tell us a little bit more about this deadly kind of fad. Good morning to you, Mr. Smith. Can you hear me?
Morning, Eben.
You guys had a ghost operation, I believe, scheduled for last night, if I'm correct, but it was called off due to bad weather. People don't go out driving fast in bad weather in Cape Town, is that it?
Sometimes they do, but I think last night the indication was there was not going to be drag racing. But at this stage, the Ghost Squad is going out 2 times a week, sometimes thrice, 4 times. So it's an ongoing battle, and it's something we have to do as part of our broader road safety campaign, as part of our Safely Home joint campaign with the provincial government.
Well, why do we see such an increase in this kind of event in the Western Cape?
I don't know that there's an increase. I think more people have access to motor vehicles to start with. As the population has acquired more resources, you see more vehicles registered in our roads. I think more people have access to cars. And also it's been a sport or an activity that has been popularized by lots of media, Fast and the Furious, computer games like Need for Speed and other things that glamorizes it. And when it's in a controlled environment, it's fine. If they're doing it on a controlled racing circuit away from other public road users, it's fine. Then they're only putting themselves at risk. The problem, of course, is that the activity takes place on busy city streets, and every now and again we have a horror smash where some innocent person loses their lives. In Klipfontein, we had an elderly lady who, whilst minding her own business, got killed in a horrible, horrible collision with some drag racers a couple of years ago. And incidents like that spark great public irritation and animosity towards it and generate a lot of complaints. So when I'm out at community meetings during the week, and public meetings, community police forum meetings, this is one of the things that the public complain about bitterly and demand that we take action against, which is what the Ghost Squad has been doing since 2009.
Is it not time maybe for the City of Cape Town then to look at facilities for this kind of thing? In the end, it's sport. We've got facilities for rugby and cricket that people can use. Is it not maybe time that we look at specific facilities for this kind of thing if so many people are participating in it?
Yes, we have been having discussions with several of the drag racing operators. People like Reddy D also is a radio DJ for the SABC, has an organization called Drift Squad. He and other organizers do organize legal and legitimate events where people can go and do exhibitions and participate under slightly more controlled circumstances. But the street racing scene wants to be illegal. They're not interested in doing it legally. They're not interested in legal venues. For them, playing cat and mouse with the police is part of the fun, unfortunately. And there's no discussion possible on that front. And we, on the other hand, can't turn a blind eye to this because it continues to generate fatalities. And over the last few years, from 2003, 2004, Cape Town has consistently improved our road fatality death rate. In fact, we're the only metro in the country that's managed to bring our road death rate down from over 2,000. You know, we were losing as many people on our roads as were being victims of violent crime. So we've brought that down to just under 1,300 a year, and it continues to reduce. We're quite proud of that, and that's a whole package of interventions around which the focus on drag racing is one of them.
Surely this must also be a breeding ground for other illegal activities then. Do you know who's behind it, who's organizing these kind of events then?
It's organized mainly via social media, groups on WhatsApp and Mixit and otherwise. We do our best to infiltrate these, and we used unmarked vehicles. And we've got a couple of new strategies up our sleeve. We're making more use of different rented vehicles so that the vehicles of the Ghost Squad is less predictable. And also use video surveillance and our CCTV infrastructure to help bring the guys to book. I was part of an operation a few weeks ago where we caught some people on the N1 dicing. I had to go and give evidence yesterday on that particular case to the detective. I had to submit an affidavit in support of the officer who I was on the ride along with. So we're doing that, and we've also been speaking to the provincial government. The Provincial Traffic Act has kicked in. The regulations in terms of that act will be published later that year. And in terms of that regulations, we're giving ourselves some extra teeth to deal with these vehicles and to be able to effectively impound the vehicle immediately and not just have to deal with some of the downstream offences, to be able to go to the source and impound vehicles involved in these activities, and also the vehicles that have been illegally altered. And as you say, unfortunately, sometimes there's alcohol and drugs involved with it. That just makes the situation worse. You've got somebody who at high speed is operating a motor vehicle, which they're not trained for, don't have the skill to do. Just because your vehicle can go fast doesn't mean you can. And unfortunately, if they do that under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that just makes the situation worse. We had a woman about 8-9 months ago who was arrested after a long chase during which she damaged many vehicles and was heavily under the influence of drugs, which I think explains some of the behavior she exhibited during the whole process.
I'm sure that you've got communities involved and so forth. How does Cape Town communities get involved in dealing with these issues then?
I would say generally by shouting at me over the phone on a lighter note, but in reality people report this to us very quickly. We have certain people who in certain communities have complained to us in the past. Those people will call the authorities the moment the drag racing starts up. People start congregating. We monitor the situation through our CCTV cameras as well, and we encourage the public to call and report such incidents to our call centre on 021 480 7700 so that we can dispatch our response vehicles. And also we have an informant reward system where people who are coming forward with information about these illegal activities are eligible for a reward.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That's Alderman J.P. Smith, the City of Cape Town's Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, telling us all about the scourge of illegal drag racing on the streets of the mother city. Thank you once again, sir.
Pleasure.
Now we conclude the week's business by talking about the thing that everyone in this country is passionate about, sports. Lebo Dube is with us this morning. Morning, Lebo. Nice to see you again.
Morning, Eben. It's been a long time since I've been a guest.
Yes, it has been. You know, you are flying too high to be on our show, it seems. Wanted to ask you, small matter of business there, the Buccaneers winning another trophy tomorrow. I tell the guys from the Kaizer Chiefs Club here in studio. Are you in agreement?
Look, I mean, it would be fitting for them to lift the Nedbank Cup, looking that they've been in 4 cup finals in the season. So it would be fitting for them. I think it would be fitting to lift that trophy. And I mean, it's a record 4 times. There's no team that has actually reached 4 cup finals in a season. So I think they'll probably lift it. But I think they're against a stiff competition against Bidvest. Looking at Gavin Hunt's their last performance in the cup against Kaizer Chiefs there, and you look at how they were attacking in the first half, and I think Pirates would have to maintain them and maybe strike during the second half or late in the second half, so that they can lift the Nedbank Cup. Yeah,
that's a team playing well, and they've got probably the best goalkeeper in the country. I'm going to be controversial again by saying it. Moneep Josephs in that penalty shootout against Kaizer Chiefs, he was amazing. He was almost unplayable for the Chiefs players on the day.
He was amazing on that particular day, and I think throughout the season, though he had a bad start through in the beginning of the season, but I think as time went on, he gained momentum, and I think he's at his best now. But again, we look at Senzo Meyiwa as well. I mean, he's good in penalties as well. And Gavin Hunt, though, he said that, you know, should his team or should on the final the match get to penalties, his team would probably lift the Nedbank Cup. But as well, Eric Tinker, the assistant coach of Orlando Pirates, said that, I mean, Senzo Meyiwa is probably the best in stopping those penalties. So I think both teams would try and avoid getting to that stage of the penalties because.
So who's the best goalkeeper then in the country on current form?
Look, on current form, I would go with Moneep. I'll go with Monip. Looking at, again, I mean, we've got Tumelen Kune, but I mean, with that injury that he suffered, I think in terms of consistency, would then say it is Monip. But on that day, it's a cup final. Anything can happen.
That's right, it's a cup final, and Wits are a very good side, no doubt about it. But you're still calling the Buccaneers to win it, am I right?
Yeah, can we move on to the FA Cup?
Can we move on to our level? Oh, man, typical. Always sitting on the fence. You get paid for this. You're supposed to make a call.
Look, even as I said, I'm going to stick to it. I think the Buccaneers deserve to win it. But again, you look at Bidvest, they've played well throughout the season.
Okay, thank you. You've given me the broad strokes. I wanted you to say It's okay. Let's move on to the FA Cup. Arsenal, their season and probably their last 5 season depends on tomorrow's game, because if they don't lift the FA Cup, it will be a huge setback, I think, for Arsene Wenger and what he's trying to build, the sort of new era of success at Arsenal, one would think.
Certainly. I mean, you look, the last time they won this particular cup was in 2005 against Manchester United. The likes of Beckham were playing, then the likes of Vieira, Pires were playing, and I think if you look now, the likes of Ramsey would want to emulate that team of 2005. And I think it would be sad for them not to win it, especially against a team that has never been in a cup final in its existence, in its 110th year of existence. And if you look at their history as well, in 1930, that was the last time that Hull City actually got to the semi-finals or played well in this particular competition against the very same Arsenal. And if you look at the current form as well, in their last 5 matches, you look at Arsenal, they've won their last 5 matches, whereas in the last 6 matches, the Hull City have only won 1, drawn 1, and lost 4 matches. So if you look at it, you could put that Arsenal would lift the trophy tomorrow.
On current form, that's right. But Hull City's played in the middle part of the season. They played some fantastic football and beat a lot of top sides.
No, definitely. I mean, they've played well. And you look at they're going to the Wembley Stadium, where they've had 100% record. They've never lost at Wembley. So, I mean, if you talk about luck, they'll probably then do well. But if you look as well, and the road to reaching the FA Cup final, they had a fairly easier road as compared to Arsenal, where they met Tottenham, they met Everton, they met Liverpool, and defending champions Wigan. So on the day, anything can happen. But looking at current form, yes, Arsenal would probably lift the trophy.
Let's move on to Spain. I think that we've got a real a cracking football weekend ahead of us. There's a big decider in Spain. It's almost poetically written that the final game of the season, Barcelona against Atletico Madrid. Are you surprised with the run that Atletico has had? If they draw at Barcelona this weekend, they win the title in Spain?
Look, they need a draw. And they've been playing extremely well. I mean, they're in the final of the Champions League. They'll be playing Madrid the following weekend. And you look at, I think they would want to do well on the day against Barcelona, so that it prepares them psychologically as well for the Champions League final. But you look at how they played against each other this season. I mean, both teams, I think they've played 4 times, and I think they've it's balanced the performance this season. But you look at Atletico, they only need a point. You look at Barcelona, they need 3 points. And should Barcelona win this particular match, they would actually win it on head-to-head. On superior head-to-head difference. So I think Atletico would want to avoid such a situation, and they'll probably want to go there for a killer to get 3 points, from the word go.
For a team that's always the stepsister of Real Madrid, we saw pictures there of Real Madrid a little bit earlier. Atletico, they're in Madrid, always the second team. They can win the Champions League, and they can do it a double if they win this weekend and then beat Madrid in the final. In a couple of weeks' time.
The final is next week Saturday on the 24th, and I think their main objective is to actually claim a double. You look at it has been an 18-year run since they won the league in 1996. They won the league in 1996, and I think they want to do well. I mean, it would be disappointing. You look at the likes of Benfica losing there against Sevilla, being playing well throughout the season and losing it there, you know, at the last, falling at the last hurdle. So I think Atletico would want to aim for that particular double, and I think they will actually give Barcelona a good run tomorrow. But again, for Barcelona, you look at Puyol, who are supposed to be playing tomorrow, his last game after 15 years at Barcelona, will not be playing due to an injury. And I think as well, Barcelona will go out guns blazing because they want to actually, you know, pay tribute to the former coach Tito Villanova, who passed away last month.
Thank you very much. Lebohang Dube, the man who never makes a call on who's going to win. I thought it was your job to make a call, Lebo.
But I think Banyana are also playing on Sunday. Their qualifiers against, they're playing their preparation against Ghana. The qualifiers are supposed to play next week, Saturday, as well, against the Comores. But I think that match hangs in the balance because the Comores have not confirmed whether they'll be coming. They actually requested that they should not host Banyana due to their financial strains. But I think it's one game again against Ghana. The West Africans want to look out for this weekend.
And you're not going to give us a call on that one either. Lebohang Dube from our sports desk, giving us the insight, or well, giving us a little bit of insight as to how things will pan out in the world of football this weekend. It's going to be a cracking world of football. Thank you for watching. This has been a live broadcast brought to you by SABC News. We're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. More updates continue on this channel throughout the rest of the day. You're watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.